I first noticed something was off about my new neighbor when they tried to water their houseplants with cleaning bleach. It was pure chance that I spotted it through our adjacent balconies. Their sliding door was open, and they were cheerfully about to douse a perfectly healthy piece of lily with Clorox. "Wait," I called out, nearly dropping my morning coffee. "That'll kill it." They froze, bottle hovering above the plant, and turned to look at me with an expression I can only describe as deeply confused. Their features were unusual, not in any way I could quite put my finger on, but something about the proportions seemed ever so slightly wrong. "Kill?" they asked, their voice carrying an odd metallic tone. "But this contains the purest form of chlorine available to consumers. Plants require chlorine for photosynthesis, yes?" That was the moment I should have realized something was very different about the resident of apartment 4 billion. Instead, I just thought they were really bad at botany. "They need trace amounts that they get naturally," I explained, trying not to sound condescending. "That concentration would definitely kill them. Just use water." "Ah," they set down the bleach with excessive care, as if it might explode. "Water. Of course. How obvious. Thank you, neighbor friend." That was how I met Zexthith, though I wouldn't learn their name or what they really were until much later. Over the next few weeks, I had several more unusual encounters with my neighbor. They would ask the strangest questions, often about things that seemed absolutely fundamental to daily life. Like the time they knocked on my door at 3 a.m., holding a toothbrush and looking utterly perplexed. "Neighbor friend," they said, that slight metallic ring still present in their voice, "I require assistance with a cultural practice I observed in an educational video about human grooming rituals." I was too sleepy to be properly annoyed. "What?" They held up the toothbrush like it was evidence in a murder trial, the bristled cleaning implement. The video showed it being used with a paste substance, but failed to specify which body opening it should be inserted into. The ears seemed most logical, but my attempt was unsuccessful. I stared at them for a long moment, brain struggling to process what I'd just heard. It's for your teeth. You brush your teeth with it, haven't you ever?" I trailed off as they blinked at me with those slightly too large eyes. Teeth, of course. How obvious. They said that a lot. I was starting to notice. "Thank you, neighbor friend. I will now go brush my teeth as humans do." They turned and walked away with movements that were just a little too precise, like someone trying very hard to remember exactly how walking was supposed to work. The incidents kept piling up. I found them trying to eat a banana without peeling it. They asked me why humans chose to sleep horizontally when vertical sleeping would be so much more space efficient. Once I caught them attempting to log into their laptop by licking the keyboard. But the real kicker came during our building summer barbecue. I watched in horror as my neighbor approached the grill, picked up a still burning charcoal briquette with their bare hands, and attempted to eat it. "Hot," they exclaimed, dropping the coal back onto the grill. Their hands showed no signs of burns. "Neighbor friend, you did not inform me that the black food nuggets require cooling before consumption." That was when everything clicked into place. The odd movements, the strange questions, the complete lack of basic knowledge about human life, the slight shimmer I sometimes saw around them when the light hit just right. "You're not human, are you?" I asked quietly, pulling them aside. They stared at me for a long moment, then their shoulders slumped. Was it the coal consumption attempt that gave me away? I couldn't help but laugh. That was definitely a factor, yes. And that's how I learned that my neighbor was an alien anthropologist sent to study human culture through immersion. Apparently, their species had been watching us for a while, but found human behavior so baffling that they decided they needed boots on the ground, so to speak. "Your species is fascinating," Zexthith told me one evening over coffee, which they'd initially tried to drink through their ears. "But your customs are incredibly complex. Did you know you have over 37 different ways to say hello? And that's just in English. How do you keep track of when to use hi versus hey versus what's up versus how's it going?" "We just sort of know," I said, realizing for the first time how many little social rules we take for granted. "And your food," they continued, gesturing with their coffee cup. "Some things go together, some things don't, but there's no logical pattern. Chocolate and strawberries, acceptable. Chocolate and pickles, apparently disgusting. But who decided this? Where's the governing body that makes these decisions?" I spent the next hour trying to explain the concept of cultural norms evolving naturally over time. I'm not sure I succeeded. Living next door to an alien anthropologist turned out to be surprisingly educational for both of us. I learned that what we consider common sense is actually an incredibly complex set of learned behaviors and cultural assumptions. They learned that humans generally don't appreciate being observed while sleeping, even in the name of science. There were still plenty of mishaps, like the time they tried to join a video conference for work without their human disguise on, and I had to tackle them before they could traumatize their entire accounting department. Or when they attempted to make someone talk by asking a neighbor if humans had evolved past the need for their appendix yet, leading to a very awkward conversation about inappropriate personal questions. But mostly, it was just nice. Zextis was genuinely curious about everything, and their questions made me see my own world in a new light. Why do we say bless you when someone sneezes? Why do we give flowers to people we love, only to watch them slowly die? Why do we have so many words that all mean the same thing? One day, about 6 months after the bleach incident, Zextis invited me over for dinner. They had apparently been practicing human cooking, and wanted to show off their progress. I have prepared a traditional human meal, they announced proudly, gesturing to their dining table. I looked at the spread and bit back a laugh. There was a pizza still in the delivery box, a container of grocery store sushi, a bowl of cereal, and what appeared to be a raw potato. These are all the major human food groups, yes? They asked, hopefully. The circular wheat-based disc with protein and vegetation, the raw fish wrapped in seaweed and carbohydrates, the sweetened grain particles suspended in cow lactation and the earth tuber. It's perfect, I told them, and I meant it. Sure, it wasn't a conventional dinner party, but then again, nothing about our friendship was conventional. As we ate our eclectic meal, Zextis told me more about their world and their mission. Apparently, Earth was considered something of a curiosity in the galactic community. Most species followed relatively predictable patterns of development, but humans, we were chaos incarnate. Your species went from first powered flight to landing on your moon in just 66 years, they said, poking at their sushi with fascination. Do you know how unprecedented that is? Most species take at least 3 centuries to make that leap, if they make it at all. You humans just decided to do it faster. We can be pretty determined when we want to be, I agreed. That's putting it mildly. You're the only known species that looked at the vast, cold void of space and thought I'd could go there if we strapped ourselves to a controlled explosion. They shook their head. It's terrifying, it's amazing, it's why we find you so interesting. I thought about that for a while. So what's the end goal here? What happens when you're done studying this? Zextis quiet for a moment. Originally the plan was to determine if humans were ready for first contact. But I've learned something important during my time here. Oh? You're not ready for first contact, they said, then held up a hand as I started to protest. And that's okay. You're not ready because you're not finished becoming what you're going to be. Your species is still evolving, still changing, still figuring things out. Making contact now would be like interrupting a butterfly while it's still in the cocoon, I suggested. Yes, exactly. Though I still don't understand why you let those insects freely metamorphose in your gardens instead of maintaining proper containment protocols. They paused. That was a joke. I have been practicing human humor. I laughed, both at the joke and the proud way they announced it was a joke. So what happens to you when your mission is over? I will return home and submit my findings. Another anthropologist will probably be sent to take my place. We find humans endlessly fascinating. They look down at their plate. I will miss you, neighbor friend. You have been an excellent research assistant. I'll miss you too, I said, surprised by how much I meant it. You can tell them to look me up if they need help figuring out how toothbrushes work. And Zextis made the clicking sound that I'd learned was their species' version of laughter. Oh, I will certainly include that in my report. When in doubt, consult the human in 4A. They are surprisingly helpful and only moderately judgmental about cultural misunderstandings. We spent the rest of the evening trading stories about our various misadventures. I told him about my mortification when they tried to greet our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, by sniffing her hair, apparently a formal greeting on their world. They reminded me about the time they'd caused a minor panic by shedding their skin in the building's laundry room, a perfectly normal process for their species, but somewhat alarming to the other residents. Looking back, I realized that Zextis taught me as much about being human as I taught them. Sometimes it takes an outsider's perspective to make you appreciate the wonderful absurdity of your own existence. Why do we keep plants in our homes? Why do we say you too when a server tells us to enjoy our meal? Why do we dream up stories about aliens living among us? Maybe that last one isn't so absurd after all. These days, whenever I see someone doing something that seems strange or inappropriate, I think about Zextis. Maybe they're not weird or rude, maybe they're just an alien anthropologist trying their best to understand our bizarre human customs. And maybe, just maybe, that's all any of us are really doing, trying our best to understand each other across the vast distances between our individual experiences. Though I do still check my new neighbors' balconies to make sure no one is trying to water their plants with bleach. Just in case.